Hey, good morning. Happy Tuesday to you. It's Grant Gillard, pastor at the New Horizon Presbyterian Church, just outside of lovely Odessa, Missouri. At New Horizon, we are still doing our parking lot church. We are still wrestling with this idea of how do we safely and with integrity open the church to worshiping in person inside. And we just haven't come up with that plan. And then everything changes in our world, and we're still struggling with trying to find that perfect response. In the meantime, we're still doing drive-up church every morning, 10:15 in the parking lot. We have an FM receiver at 91.7, and I will wager a bet that if you turned on your car radio in your driveway, you might be able to hear us because it's a powerful FM receiver, and we've got good response in terms of reaching people. Sunday, August the 1st. We're going to look at Matthew 14:13 through 21, and it is the feeding of the 5,000 from Matthew's perspective. Now, here's just a little bit of trivia. If you happen to get on Jeopardy, and Alex Trebek is the host, and you are there, and you got control of the board, and so you say, Alex, I will take the Bible for 100. Alex Trebek reads the question. This is the only miracle performed by Jesus that is recorded in all four Gospels. Now, don't forget to put your response in the form of a question. But the right answer is, what is the feeding of the 5,000? And that's true. The feeding of the 5,000 is the only miracle recorded in all four Gospels. The four Gospel writers are kind of interesting because they don't cover everything. All four wrote from a different perspective, their own. They're writing to a separate audience, some to the Jews, some to the Gentiles. It's hard to smooth everything out, but for some reason, the feeding of the 5,000 is in each of the four Gospels. It's in Matthew 14:13 through 21. It's in Mark chapter 6, verses 30 through 44. It's in Luke chapter 9, verses 10 through 17. And it's in John chapter 6, verses 1 through 15. Oddly, Mark is the longest, most detailed of the passages. I say oddly because we think Mark came first, and we would expect Mark's gospel to be a little more primitive, a little less embellished, and those that used his source and used his sources and used Mark as a source when they recorded their Gospels, you would think that they would embellish on that a little bit and explain some of these things that Mark's simplicity just leaves it kind of bare bones. But for some reason, Mark is the longest of these passages. So this is what it looks like from Matthew's perspective. Matthew 14:13 through 21. This section begins by saying, when Jesus heard what had happened. This is in reference to John the Baptist being beheaded by King Herod. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot to the towns. When Jesus landed, he saw a large crowd and had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Now bear in mind, in Mark's story, the reason they got away is because the crowds were pressing in on them and they had no time for leisure, no time for rest. And here the crowds had followed them, and you would expect the disciples to be a little impatient with these people. Send them away. Let them go find their own dinner. Let them go find their own sustenance. And Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." And immediately they say, "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish." "Bring them here to me," Jesus said, and he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish and looking to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. It seems like at the end, they had more than when they started. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children, which again is a very interesting selection on Matthew's part to say there are like 5,000 men, but really there's more than 5,000 total people there. So it's really quite a miracle. Of course, that's the question. Was this a miracle? Or can you very logically explain it away how 5 loaves and 2 fish can be spread amongst 5,000 men, women, and children, and all ate and were satisfied? Ponder that, because I'll give you the answer on Sunday. But we live in a very rational world where everything demands an explanation. Why did this happen? We've got hurricanes coming in, blowing in, destroying Texas, and there's an explanation how this happened. And of course, it's a complicated explanation, but there's a meteorological, there's climate change, there's the warming of the oceans, it's the pollution, it's just, there's a lot of things that cause these things to happen. COVID-19, why did this happen? Oh, could it be God's punishment? Or is this a Chinese conspiracy? Everybody's got an explanation. When the latest issue of the Christian Century, Bailey Pickens writes about this need to be rational in our explanations of how all these things are happening. And Bailey writes, in the face of catastrophe, neatness and simplicity are at best red herrings. Now that's from the writing world, the red herrings. A red herring is the butler, because we all know when there's a murder mystery, the butler did it, right? The butler always does it. Man, it must be rough being a butler. You just walk into a room and everybody assumes, as a butler, you're going to kill him, because the butler always does it. And when the mystery unravels toward the end, that poor butler is exonerated because the waiter did it, or the mailman did it, or the gardener did it, or the jealous brother-in-law did it, or the greedy uncle did it. But of course, who do we blame first? The butler. God, it must be hard being a butler. Anyhow, red herrings lead us to false conclusions. And what Bailey Pickens is saying is, in this world of rationality, that everything demands an explanation, black and white, neatness and simplicity are at best red herrings. But think about miracles as we get ready for Sunday. Do you still believe in miracles? It seems a lot of people don't until they need one. But a miracle is still present today. Now, there's something that was said, to those who don't believe, no proof is enough. To those who do believe, no proof is necessary. We'll ponder that too on Sunday. Again, we meet at 10:15. Drive up church. You can stay in your car, turn the air conditioning on. You can listen to us on 91.7. People still get out of their cars. We try and practice social distancing. We encourage wearing masks and all that good stuff. But people are safe in their cars. But come. And if nothing else, you can talk to people through your windows. And it's the next best thing we got to in-person worship. And someday, we'll be there. Because we know that we walk by faith and not by sight. And with God's help, we'll get through this. Until we meet on Sunday, God bless.